Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3. Today we have a special one, a good friend of mine that I've known for many years now and followed closely on social media. This man is on LinkedIn, Twitter. I love his one-liners that he does put up, always gives us inspiration. And for those of you listening, please follow this man. This is Dino Pacella, Head of Third-Party Advisory at Simplicity Finance and Advisory located in Brisbane. Dino, welcome to our episode.
Prash, thank you so much for the kind intro, mate. Always good to be talking to you, and thanks for having me on the show.
Likewise, Dino. And today, Dino is in Perth. He's here at Crown Towers. I'm sure those of you that can see the background, you'll recognize it. But welcome back to Perth, man. How are you feeling?
Yeah, thank you, mate. I'm always excited and happy to be back in the hometown. I've been out of it now for coming up to around 2.5 years. So it's a place I grew up in. I spent 42 odd years here, so you can obviously work out my age on those calculations. But it's always great to be back, see family, friends, a lot of work partners that we have over here in the West. So it's great to give them the support that they require.
Awesome to hear that, Dino. All right, my friend, let's cut straight into business. Obviously, you deal with finance in your world, in your profession. 20 odd years you've been in the industry. Can you give us a little bit of a prediction on where the world of finance and real estate is going, not only in Brisbane, but your thoughts nationally?
Yeah, it's such a broad question, Prash, and it's something that you can break into multiple dynamics, whether that's from a residential perspective or a commercial perspective. Yeah. I used to play in that residential space, now heavily involved in the commercial sector. But if we purely have a look at from a residential perspective, we're starting to see markets slow across that Sydney, Melbourne region, as most people know, but we're starting to see those upticks, or they continue upticks across Brisbane, Adelaide, and even Perth still coming to fruition and sort of not flatlining like it has been, or probably decreasing like it had been over the previous decade. Yeah. So I think in the world of finance as well, we're starting to see cash rates rise now. We saw that a couple of weeks ago. Definitely won't be the first, so get ready for more this year. I'm predicting we'll probably see another 2 or 3 by the end of the year, if not more. Yeah. So get ready, increase your buffer zone and work through that. So if you already have a mortgage or a loan where you're going to be affected by that, prepare for that. Whether we see a slowdown in the real estate market and a slowdown in vacancies, I'm not 100% sure that purely interest rates will stop that. There's a lot of heat that comes off the market. If we talk about Brisbane solely, you've got the Olympics that are coming up in the next decade, which is helping drive part of that economy. So the infrastructure that's getting worked on from a Brisbane perspective is tenfold now outside of the CBD. Those regional areas are starting to prepare for the Olympics. So a lot of people will start flooding a little bit closer to the CBD, potentially to what they had done over the last couple of years during COVID. Yeah. But we're seeing infrastructure grow across the country. I mean, Sydney still hasn't slowed down, even though the market's come back a little bit. Yeah. And then you start looking on rental vacancies. Again, they're minimal around the country. So that's obviously boosting up rental prices to go in there. So you try and rent a place in Sydney or Melbourne, a 2-bedroom apartment in the city, you're probably looking into 4 digits now and what that looks like. So will that continue? I think from a purchaser perspective and a buyer's perspective, if interest rates start again, if this comes after the election or post the election, might have a difference on where people actually sit with that and different policies that come into play. Yes. And also lenders will play a big part in that process as well, whether they pull different levers when it comes to policy and start restricting certain LVRs, certain LMI demographics, and where that actually sits, and postcode restrictions. We'll yet to see, but I think they'll be pulling back a little bit if we also see cash rates increase.
Beautiful. Well said, Dino. And a couple of things to unpack there. I hope our listeners are getting a lot from this. So, Dino, I always enjoy the way you do explain it, especially from a wide paradigm of things. But let's move on. You mentioned about policies, my friend. Let's talk about what we're looking at. Firstly, with regards to the national budget and its announcements, how do you see that affecting the property market, especially with their announcement recently?
Yeah, maybe I can just touch on the recent announcement of Morrison's government talking about using 40% of your superannuation into the first home buyer market. Listen, it took me a little bit personally, it took me a while to digest it and have a look at the pros and cons rather than just going, hey, this is fantastic for first home buyers. It can get more people into the property market. But if you start digging a little bit deeper and having a look into it, I think it's great on the surface.
Yes.
And I think it's great for first home buyers who have been in the employment market at a decent income level to be able to use 40%, and that maximum, I think it's 50,000 that they've mentioned.
That's right.
But if you look at a first home buyer and we look at an average age of a first home buyer, which is in that high 20s, early 30s, they may not be on $150,000, $200,000 incomes. And I'm not talking about everybody here, but generally. So you're talking 10, 12 years in employment and maybe a $70,000, $80,000 potential annual income from that aspect. So do you even have that capacity to pull out 40% to make an impact on that deposit? And it's not saying everyone's going to pull out 50,000 and that's the deposit. They may have savings that they're going to help contribute towards that. Yeah. But that's one aspect. If you can get that, fantastic. I do like the measure that it goes back into your superannuation account based on the sale of the asset.
Yes.
So I think that's a real positive in that aspect. So we're not disadvantaging people once they get to retirement age. So I do like that. So the more I talk about it now, Prash, as well with you, the more I'm a believer. I think it's a good thing. Maybe with that second half of it going back into the super account, maybe we need to look at different barriers or different avenues when it comes to that 40% lever and allowing people maybe to buy a little bit more if they don't have 200,000 or 300,000 saved in their super.
Yeah, and there was talks as well. You just mentioned now about how number one, a lot of people that first home buyers will be going to the affordable market range. There were talks about it increasing prices, and obviously that works with supply and demand. It's already been happening over the last 1 year. Do you see that increasing the prices if more people was to do so?
But potentially, yes. I mean, every supply-demand lever that the government pulls or banks pulls or RBA seems to increase it a little bit. So if there's more people flooding the markets, if we're not keeping up with demand, if construction's still going to be slow based on the slowness of getting supplies back into the country again and workers and everything sort of coming back to normality now post-COVID. But I think that's probably another 6 to 12 months away to getting to the speed that we were doing the constructions back in early 2019, 2020. So I would say yes, for the first year or two, if this policy passes, I think you'll see a small uptick in prices.
Yes.
And I think you'll see that across the country, regardless if it's Sydney or Melbourne markets who have slowed a little bit. I think you'll still see them ramp back up again because more people will want to get back out, even into those outer CBD suburbs with something that they can afford.
That's right. All right. Well said then, Dino. And also recently at the state budget, the Perth government announced that they've got a new build to rent scheme. That means there's a 50% land tax concession on any properties that are built to rent. But that only starts, Dino, on the 1st of July 2023, which falls into line with what you've just mentioned about the construction industry coming back in about 12 to 18 months' time. So I think you're on track there with that thought process. And again, the investor market needs a boost when it comes down to homes. For the rental market, we need more supply. So I think that innovation or innovative, that the state government is doing would definitely help in moving forward. All right, Dino, thank you so much, my friend, for joining us. I've got one final question for you. For those of you that don't know, Dino is an avid fan of Chelsea FC. So, Dino, tonight's the game, Chelsea versus Leicester City. What's your prediction, man?
Let's go Chelsea 3-1, but the way they've been playing at the moment, Prash, I'm not confident in saying that. I'm glad you didn't bring up the FA Cup final or the Champions League, so thanks for avoiding that.
Of course, man.
But yeah, hopefully we can get back into winning ways and have a good off-season, prepare for next season, I think.
Awesome.
I'm glad the Chelsea women's team, though, have had a tremendous season, Champions of England, FA Cup winners as well, and obviously Australian Samantha Kerr kicking goals and doing wonderful things in England. So we're very lucky to have her in the Matilda squad here.
Great that you've mentioned it, Dino. Once again, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. This has been another episode of the Real Estate Times. Dino, your insight is highly, highly valuable. For those of you that are listening, please do follow this man. Once again, we would like to thank you for being here. On behalf of myself and Janine, who couldn't be here, you have a fantastic, fantastic stay in Perth, my friend. Until next time.
Thank you, Prash. Thank you.
See you, Dino.